Okay, welcome to today's lesson. What we're going to be doing today is energy systems, or how our body creates and uses energy around the body. And there's three main ways that we're going to be covering, but for today, well, to start with, we're just going to be doing the ATP-PC system. Okay, we'll then get onto the lactic acid system and then eventually into the aerobic system. But for today, we're going to be staying on the ATP-PC system. So, there's two main parts to the ATP-PC system. The first part that we're going to be looking at is that first section, or what it stands for, adenosine triphosphate. Now, adenosine triphosphate is a compound, and it's made up of four parts. One part A, or adenosine, and then three parts phosphate. And between each of these phosphate molecules, what we have are energy bonds. Okay, so if you think of each of these as being its own molecule, there's a bond which is sticking them all together. Okay, and the bond which we care most about is this third one here. Okay, because it has the highest energy yield contained within it. So if we're able to break that down, we'll be able to release energy from that bond and use that within our body. Because ATP is the currency of energy that our body uses. Just like in the UK, we use pounds sterling to fund ourselves, to fund our life. Our bodies use ATP to fund and to fuel its body and all of its energy needs, because we require energy to do almost every single function inside of our body, be it growing hair, replenishing skin cells, the ossification of bones, the contraction of muscles, the contraction of the heart. All of these different functions require energy, and our body can only get energy by breaking apart this compound, or adenosine triphosphate. Now, hopefully what some of you have noticed is that there's three phosphate molecules which corresponds to this part of the word, tri. Just like a tricycle has three wheels, adenosine triphosphate has three connected phosphate molecules. Okay, you'll see the importance of this in a moment. So we have the adenosine connected to three phosphate molecules, creating what we call adenosine triphosphate within our body. Now we have between 2 to 3 seconds of adenosine triphosphate contained, if we just think about muscles to begin with, contained within inside of our muscles that we can actually break down instantly and use as energy. So 2 to 3 seconds. So we're thinking shot putter, high jumper, perhaps one slam dunk in basketball. These high explosive, high energy actions which last a very short period of time, they will be utilizing just adenosine triphosphate. They won't need systems in place to replenish these systems straight away, because they only need high energy for short bursts and short amounts of time. Okay, if we start to look at the PC section of this system, or what it's also known as phosphocreatine, let me write that down there. So phosphocreatine is able to be broken down just like that third P was within ATP. We're able to break down phosphocreatine and refuel or resynthesize our adenosine triphosphate stores. Okay, and what this is known as is a coupled reaction. And I'll explain that now. So what happens is, where we have ATPPC, or adenosine triphosphate, as we break down that third energy bond, we release energy, allowing our muscles to contract. Okay, this is known as exothermic. Okay, exo, think exit. So there's thermal energy or heat energy or chemical energy being released or exiting a compound. So exothermic reaction is taking place when we break down ATP. For phosphocreatine to be useful, what we do with this is break it down. Okay, so rather than putting it back together like we're going to be trying to do with the ATP, we're actually going to be breaking down phosphocreatine into its phosphate molecule and its creatine molecule. But this is also an exothermic reaction. And what we can actually do is use this release of energy to fuel what's known as an endothermic reaction which takes place when we are adding the phosphate molecule that was broken off in this section, when we're trying to add it back to this APP molecule to recreate ATP. Okay, and what this molecule here is known as, or this compound is known as, is ADP, or adenosine diphosphate. Adenosine diphosphate. Now, if you think of the word dissection, we're splitting a body into two parts. So adenosine diphosphate has two parts of phosphate molecule connected together, but the spare one is nearby because it was broken away during the earlier reaction. Okay, now in order to recreate ATP so we can then break it down again, we use the exothermic energy that was released when we broke down phosphocreatine. Okay, so when we break down phosphocreatine into a separate phosphate molecule and a separate creatine molecule, the exothermic energy released can actually be used to resynthesize ADP, or adenosine diphosphate, to recreate our friend adenosine triphosphate. We now have this compound available to break down once again, to release that energy from that high energy yielding third bond, which we can see from earlier, to then fuel our body, to jump, to run, to breathe, to contract our heart, and to rebuild our body. Okay, so how it looks in science, let's say, we have our ATP molecule here. Now what we have what's known as an enzyme inside of our body, and an enzyme is something which fuels chemical processes, which helps chemical reactions take place. And what we have helping us here is known as ATPase. So ATPase is an enzyme which is causing this breakage in the third bond. So ATPase breaks down ATP to form ADP, which you can see there, so adenosine diphosphate, as well as the spare phosphate molecule there. Okay, and as you can see from this little diagram here, this is releasing exothermic energy. Okay, so it's giving off energy, and that is causing movement. Okay, that's the currency of our body. That's energy happening. That's causing our muscles to move. Now, in order to sustain movement, to sustain energy processes, we require ATP, or more ATP. And we can only store 2 to 3 seconds of it inside of our body as raw ATP. Once that's gone, we need to recreate or resynthesize new ATP. And we do that using phosphocreatine. Okay, so phosphocreatine here is broken down using an enzyme known as creatine kinase. Creatine kinase. This, just like ATPase up here, breaks apart this compound. Okay, and this releases the exothermic energy. Okay, so these enzymes help break down these compounds of ATP and phosphocreatine in order to release energy. Okay, now in this first section up here, or first step, we break down ATP to release our exothermic energy to create movement. Okay, that's a separate process. The second process, okay, and there is a third one to come, that is the drawing. This is known as a coupled reaction because stage one here is going to be working with a partner. Okay, because this exothermic energy here is useless because our body doesn't use phosphocreatine to move. Rather, this exothermic energy is being used to reattach this third phosphate molecule to resynthesize an ATP. And all that would happen then is this ATP molecule would come all the way back up and the process would start again. So the main aim, or the main reason why creatine kinase is breaking down phosphocreatine, which is here, the main reason is to release energy which can supply this chemical process here. Okay, we have ADP and a spare phosphate molecule floating around. Okay, it reuses the energy released from breaking down phosphocreatine to reattach that third phosphate molecule to give us ATP, and we're allowed to continue this process again. Okay, now for our phosphocreatine, if we are fully supplied and we've got a good diet and we've given ourselves sufficient rests, we have 10 seconds worth of phosphocreatine available to our muscle to break down using the creatine kinase to resupply our body with 10 seconds worth of ATP. So plus that to the original 2 to 3 seconds of ATP already residing inside our muscle, that gives us a total work time or movement time of between 12 and 13 seconds. Okay. So in order to solidify that, there is an activity to do. What you'll need to do is read the keyword bank, then using those 12 words, fill in the blanks. Then what I would challenge you to do is to cover up your work and rewrite those 12 keywords. Okay, be it on the back of your sheet, on a plain piece of paper, turn it over and try and rewrite out those keywords. If instead of filling in the blanks you want to write out the paragraphs in their entirety, more than welcome to do so. Once you've done that, there is a diagram which I have just gone through on the slide before, but I would like you to label the diagram. In particular, the enzymes, okay, so ATPase and creatine kinase, as well as the compound name. So is it ATP? Is it ADP? Is it phosphocreatine? Or is it phosphate and creatine separate? Okay, all done.